Hello Masters, and welcome back to our next video, which is all about the next fundamental principle of living in alignment with reality, which is that shame, guilt, and doom are always lies. All right, so we are making this a hard rule for our exploration of life moving forward. And again, I just want to pause here and take a second to say, please do read everything that is contained in the lessons along with the videos. Please don't just listen to the videos, because there is a whole bunch of extra information in the written work that isn't in the video, and there's stuff in the video that isn't in the written work, and both are important for all of the things that I want to kind of give to you in this course. So just be sure that you're also reading everything that comes with the videos. Now, with this tool, this shame, guilt, and doom are always lies. Again, now that we've done the processing work of the process of awakening to reality course, and now that we've given ourselves a chance to work with these tools for a while and to, like I say, question our thoughts, to question our perceptions, and to really practice stepping into that adult perspective, this is our new kind of, again, fundamental way that we trigger ourselves into the adult perspective. So we understand that we're doing our best to be on our own side. We're doing our best to love ourselves in every moment. We're doing our best to say that whoever I am right now and whatever I need right now is perfect and acceptable, and I'm going to be here for me in that, even if, right, I'm stuck in my childhood perspective and I just need comfort, and I just need safety, and I need orientation, or I just need to take the pressure off of myself to be an adult and figure it all out and all that stuff. Understanding that, again, just as we show up for the beings that we are right here, right now, and as we love and nourish and support those beings, we are going to move forward. Now, a part of adult life, or living in alignment with reality, as far as I have experienced it, is that we are going to have to, at times, challenge ourselves to see that we are actually stronger and more capable and more able to be okay than we thought we were, right? Because the childhood perspective tells us that if life isn't perfect, and if everything isn't going exactly how it should be, or if someone's upset, or if we don't know the answer, or if we're in pain and we don't know how to get out of it, we're doomed. We're stuck in pain forever. We're incapable, and it's never going to be okay again until someone loves us, or until they're okay again, or until they forgive, or until they're not upset anymore, or until we find the answer and things have changed. And that's the childhood perspective. The childhood perspective tells us, unless I'm rescued, unless this is fixed, until this is over, I'm not okay. And if I'm not completely safe in all ways, I'm not safe. And the adult perspective is able to understand that, number one, life is never going to be perfect. Life is never going to be perfectly safe. We're never going to be perfectly ready. We're never going to be perfectly capable. There are going to be times and places where we can't solve an issue right now, where we can't resolve a conflict, where we can't find the answer, where there are parts of our life and parts of our experience where there is pain, where there is suffering, where there is confusion. But this doesn't mean that all of life is horrible. This does not mean that we are completely helpless. This does not mean we cannot be happy and cannot be okay even amongst the chaos. And this is, again, part of what stepping into the adult perspective is all about, is realizing that when we are looking for perfect safety, we are never going to find it. When we are looking for perfect security, we are never going to find it. There is always going to be something that comes up, or something to work through, or something in our reality that isn't exactly how we want it to be. And the adult perspective essentially just says, I don't want to let that be a reason I'm never happy. I don't want to let that be a reason I never feel safe. I never feel okay. I never enjoy anything. I don't want that to be a reason that I'm constantly in this hypervigilant state of looking to make sure that my environment is perfectly perfect before I can relax, right? And again, part of this comes from the catharsis and the healing of that inner child who didn't have power and who was victim to the people around us and who couldn't be okay when things weren't okay and who didn't have power to discover things. We do need to love that inner child. We do need to work with that inner child. And again, if the work in the last curriculum isn't helping you get to a place where you're feeling a little bit more solid and you're feeling a little bit more stable and you're seeing that you can be capable and you can figure things out even when things aren't okay, I highly recommend therapy and I highly recommend getting support, because again, if we're not able to kind of break out of and break past that idea that everything has to be perfect or I'm not okay, we need support, right? But if you are finding that you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, I can get to a point where I can realize it's never going to be perfect. I can realize it's never going to be perfectly all put together. And I want to learn how to be okay even when things aren't perfectly perfect. And I want to learn how to enjoy this life that exists for how it exists, understanding that I'm always going to be working between these two poles of enjoying the life that exists and working towards solving things and making things better that aren't perfect right now. And that both of these things are going to simultaneously be existing at all times. And I want to be the kind of person who can hold both of these things. That's what we're looking for. So in this step, we make it a hard rule that guilt and shame, number one, are always lies. Because for a lot of us, a lot of our pain, not all of it, not all of it in any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of it can come from this feeling that we're doing life wrong, this feeling that we are wrong, and not being able to figure out a life that actually works for us, instead of constantly trying to fit ourselves into what we think we should be in order to be happy, into our conditioning, like constantly in this state of trying to manipulate ourselves to make ourselves different so that we'll fit into a thing, is because we're believing these shame and these guilt stories that we aren't who we should be, that we aren't how we should be, that we're doing something wrong, and that there's something fundamentally wrong with the way that we are. And even if we're in a place where we're realizing we have like chronic illness or chronic fatigue and we're not able to live the life that even maybe we want to live, and we have shame and we have guilt about that, we need to refocus and recenter to, number one, having compassion for ourselves, allowing ourselves to grieve the things we're never going to be, grieve the things we may never have, grieve the things we can't do, grieve the things that we maybe don't love and can't accept, but that we can't change right now. And we have that emotional catharsis, right? So when we're moving past the shame and the guilt, we're getting at what we're really feeling about life. And that's the first thing. So when shame and guilt are always lies, if shame and guilt are not true, we're then saying, okay, so what's under this? Am I angry with someone else? Am I upset about something? And in so many ways, and in a lot of us, we internalize guilt and shame instead of being angry at our caregivers, instead of being angry at society, instead of being sad for what we didn't have, instead of being upset for how the rules of life are and the things that we have to do right now to survive or make it by and all of these things. And again, right, we're turning that in on ourselves with the childhood programming, not conscious, it's not conscious, but the childhood programming that says, if I make this my fault, I can fix it. I can do something about it because I can fix myself. And again, that's the childhood perspective that we want to break out of. Because a lot of the time, fixing the things in our life is not about fixing ourselves. Finding a life that actually works for us and moving out of the things that really don't work for us right now and into the things that really do work for us, is about first acknowledging what we're upset about, what isn't working, what doesn't feel good, and not making that our fault, but instead saying, okay, so what would I like instead? What would work for me? And we start to be able to work towards that. And that's what the rest of the course is about. So don't worry about that so much right now. But when we make it a hard rule that there's nothing wrong with us, that we are not broken, that when things don't feel good or we don't like them or we can't do it, it's not our fault. And then same thing with any destructive behaviors, addictions, coping mechanisms, self-sabotage, it's never our fault. We understand that we did not ever one day sit there and say, okay, I want to destroy my own life. I could have these healthy coping mechanisms. I could do the life that I'm doing and just do it fine and be in these relationships and do all these things. And I'm just choosing to sabotage myself. I'm just choosing to have addiction. I'm just choosing to have these things because I wanted to make life hard for myself. That never happened. So again, when we start to understand that even within the things we feel the most guilt and shame about, the destructive behaviors we have, the chaotic patterns in our lives, the parts of ourselves that other people do not like and have told us forever are bad and wrong, when we stop shaming and blaming these parts, when we stop blaming and shaming ourselves for our behavior, again, we can start to investigate into, why am I doing this? As in, what is the need that's being met? How is this helping me cope with things I don't like? How is this helping me sabotage a thing I don't actually want to go towards? How is this helping me sabotage a thing that I really am and that I really want, but that my nervous system won't let me do because it's too different from what I was trained I had to be? We need to start to look past the shame and the guilt to what's really going on. Who are we actually upset with? What are we actually upset with? What are we coping with? What do we actually want? What do we actually need? And again, it's not necessarily even to say that we have awareness of these things at all right now. It's the making it a non-negotiable that shame and guilt are always lies, that we start the process of investigation to find these things, to find the answers. And sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes we're just doing our thing over and over and over again and making it safe, doing it, making it safe, doing it, making it safe for a long time before we have any kind of revelation about what's really going on. Sometimes we discover that, again, feeling what we actually feel and being upset with other people and being upset with circumstances is really hard because we had been invalidated in those feelings forever. We had been told forever, your opinion doesn't matter, what you want doesn't matter, being upset with other people doesn't get you anything, no one cares, no one validates you. Maybe you were attacked and shamed and blamed and guilted anytime you tried to be upset with someone else or anytime you tried to advocate for yourself, and so you just learned to turn it in on yourself. Like, there are going to be layers to this. And we want to, again, make space for that. That we want to make room for, just because we say, okay, shame and guilt are a lie 1 or 2 times and we don't have a revelation, that means, okay, well, yeah, then I should be shameful and guilty about this. It's gonna take us a long time sometimes to have the revelation. But like I say, when we make it a rule that shame and guilt are always lies, that no matter what we're feeling shameful about and no matter what we're feeling guilty about, it's not because we're bad, it's not because we're wrong, and there's no bad part of us, then we can start to look into what's really going on. What am I really feeling? What do I really want? What do I really need? What are the needs that I don't even know that I have that are going unmet here? What are the things that I'm doing that I totally thought were just normal and fine that I'm actually not okay with? We start to make it so that we can start to see these things over time. When we keep saying, okay, well, shame and guilt aren't it. This being a bad part of me isn't it. So what else might it be? What else could be there? That is how we find it. We just make it a hard rule that we're always going to look for what's actually going on. That we're not going to let ourselves sit in the shame and the guilt, which are always a cover-up. We love the parts of ourselves that are shameful and guilty. We thank them, right? And again, letting go of the shame and guilt is going to be hard. These parts of ourselves that want to shame and guilt us learned to do that as a coping strategy when all we had was our own behavior. So we love those parts. We don't try and get rid of the shaming and guilting parts. We love those parts. We make room for them. We comfort them. And then we say, but we're going to keep looking and we're going to keep digging. Okay? And then the last thing of doom also being a lie. When we're thinking thoughts and getting to a place where we just feel like I'm completely trapped, there's no hope for me, I'm never going to get out of this, I'm never going to be okay again. Again, we want to make that a hard rule that doom is never reality. Doom is never reality. Doom is a childhood, things never change, things never get better, I have no power. And sometimes in our lives, again, we don't have the power to change things the way we want to change them right now. Sometimes we don't know how we're ever going to have the power to change things the way we want to. But when we make doom, again, a non-negotiable, we don't believe doom. What we're saying is, I'm going to make myself look for something that could be of comfort to me right now. I'm going to make myself look for something that could be a step forward right now. Even if that comfort or that step forward is just, this is not my fault, I did not do this to myself, I'm going to be on my own side, I am not alone. I am not alone with me. I'll go into the Facebook group, I'll ask for some support. I am not alone. Because again, I understand that sometimes we can't change the circumstances the way we want. Sometimes things do look really hopeless. And like it's never going to get better and it's never going to change. And that's okay. That's part of being alive. That's part of being an adult, is sometimes we don't have the answers and we don't know how we're going to fix it. And it's been this way for a long time. And we get sad and we get scared, and that's normal. But we're always going to remind ourselves that at the very least, we have our own love and our own approval, and we can be here with and for ourselves and not make it our fault and not abandon ourselves. We have the community of other people who are there to just validate our feelings and tell us that they love us and that we're good enough. And like I say, even though that doesn't change the circumstance, it is going to help us feel better. And again, when we make doom a non-negotiable, it still primes our own perception to start looking for solutions where we may have given up before. It primes our perception to look for answers we may not have looked for before. It primes our perception to accept small answers and small relief and small steps, even if it doesn't heal the whole thing, even if it doesn't fix everything, even if it doesn't take us from 0 to 100, we will start to accept the little things when we no longer make doom an option. Things change. Life is always going to change. Nothing is ever going to stay the same. And when we don't accept doom, we start to say, okay, I'm an adult who's going to accept little steps, who's going to accept a little bit of progress, who's going to accept that just being on my own side and loving myself can be something right now. And I'm going to open my perspective to whatever comes into my reality as even just a little bit of a solution, because I'm always going to be open for that, right? And we shift our perspective into being, so long as I'm alive, there's another step to take. There will be something. I'm not going to give up until I'm dead. And so that's what we mean when we say doom is no longer an option. I will never get out of this, there is no hope for me. We start to just say, nope, there's always something. Even if it's just little, there's always something. Everything always changes. I am an adult and I will always have some power until I'm dead. So shame and guilt are always lies. Doom is always a lie. And when we make that our foundation, we open up a world of exploration, a world of answers, a journey. And we accept that and we embrace that so long as we're alive, there's something to learn, there's something to expand into, there's a step to take, there's more love. And we're gonna sit with that. And I'm never doing anything just to hurt myself, ever. I'm always giving myself the benefit of the doubt that I learned this, and then I'm gonna do that process of, where did I learn this? what's really going on, what do I really need, and understanding that it will be a process and making room for that. Okay? So that's the hard rule of being an adult in this reality, is because, and we do it for ourselves, not to be an adult. We do it because this is something that makes our own lives more enjoyable, more livable. When we don't let ourselves hate ourselves, and when we don't let ourselves go into doom, it makes our own life better. So again, I'm saying hard rule, I'm saying all these things, but understanding that you don't have to do any of this. These are just suggestions. And I want you to try them on and give them a try and see what happens. What happens when you no longer make shame and guilt an option? And what happens when you no longer make doom an option? So long as you're alive, there is some power for you. What happens when you start to build that self-esteem? That I can get on my own side even when it's really hard. That I can do the long journey of discovery even when I don't know where it's going or how it's going to work out. What happens when we do that? Does it make life better? And if so, keep with it. And if it doesn't, obviously let it go. Okay? And again, we nurture that inner child. It's not about forcing yourself to be an adult now. That's not what this is, right? Because showing up for what we really want and what we really need sometimes means I'm just scared and I'm tired and I'm lonely and I don't want to do it. And that's okay. We validate that. We make it safe. We always return to making ourselves safe. We don't shame the inner child. We don't guilt the inner child. You're not an adult yet, so you got to be this way. We're all going to return to inner child sometimes. Understanding that. We all return to the inner child sometimes. And it's just about being able to witness that inner child and love that inner child through that time, ask for support when we need it, cry, release, process, and then when we're ready, say, okay, what do I want to do from here since I'm still alive? Where do I want to look for the hope? Where do I want to look for the little answer? Where do I want to just look for what I actually want or what I actually need and how I'm good and innocent? And we just do that over and over and over again. Okay? So do read, and I'll see you in the next video.